So let's log into the console and let's get started with seeing the value proposition of CrowdStrike. And we will start with indicators. There are many controls that you can deploy or you can restrict your endpoints with. But let's start with the controls which are quite common and controls that you should get deployed first. So under endpoint security, we have multiple options when it comes to securing the endpoints. There are multiple options. We can deploy policies through the firewall. The native firewall of endpoint can be controlled using CrowdStrike firewall policies. We can deploy device control policies. Through these policies, we can actually control the usage of external devices on the endpoint, which is primarily meant for any device that you can attach via USB port, Universal Serial Bus port. Then we have some additional policies, which is prevention policies and other policies. Now we'll start with, this is the configuration tab. This is where we will start with. So we'll start with IOC management. Now, what is IOC management? IOC management is the main function of any endpoint detection and response solution. It basically lets a business or a customer or an enterprise to manage the IOCs. Now, what is an IOC? How does it work? And what a business can do using CrowdStrike. There are other EDR solutions, for example, Defender for Endpoint. We have Sentinel-1. We have we have semantic endpoint security, Cortex XDR. There are other endpoint security solutions. Let's see what all capabilities CrowdStrike brings on the table and how those capabilities are different or may have an edge or probably have certain limitations as compared with other endpoints. Okay, so let's first understand what is an indicator here. That's the first thing that you need to understand. What is an indicator? So when it comes to endpoint security or when it comes to cybersecurity, we primarily make use of three terminologies. The first terminology is IOC, IOA, and IOM. They are interrelated. IOC stands for indicator of compromise. IO stands for indicators of attack. And IOM stands for indicator of misconfiguration. Right? So indicator of compromise, indicator of attack, indicator of misconfiguration. These are the terminologies that you will hear a lot in cybersecurity domain, in security domain. Now, what are these indicators basically? What does it mean? They basically mean forensic or digital evidences. So these indicators, all of them, they are digital, or I would say forensic evidences. They could be in the form of logs, in the form of alerts that you will find on the system. So they are digital or forensic evidences in the form of, and what these evidences are, system logs, system alerts, right? So these are the, typically they are the logs, digital evidences on the system that you will find, like in Microsoft Windows client and server operating system, we have event viewer. Event viewer contains logs. It contains application logs, system logs, security logs, right? So those are digital evidences. And what does these logs basically show? What it alerts you. So these are digital evidences that alert an admin or security analyst about an attack or presence of malicious file, software, applications. It could be a process, malicious process. It could be an activity that is happening on the system, or misconfiguration on the system, on a system, and that system could be a personal computer, that system could be a desktop, that system could be a laptop, it could be a server, etc. So it basically talks about misconfiguration on a system or on an application or network. That's what these digital evidences talk about, right? So now the example of these digital evidences, for example, as I said, that these digital evidences, they basically alert an admin about a malicious file, application, process, or activity which is happening on an endpoint or anything that has already occurred in the past. So let's say there was an attempt to gain access to an endpoint. Somebody tried to log into an endpoint uh, with a password that failed, that was incorrect. And the person and the same identities, the same person tried a combination of passwords. The first password did not work, the person tried another password, then another password, and the person was not successful. It's a malicious attempt to gain unauthorized access to a system, right? So that's the indicator of compromise. That basically shows you that there has probably been a compromise on the system or the system is compromised, right? So we talk about, as I said, system, application, or network. Now, what could be indicators of compromise, indicators of attack, indicators of misconfiguration on a system? On a system, you can say indicators of compromise is uh, attempt to gain access. That's indicator of compromise. Somebody tries to access the system, attempt to gain access, or attempt to modify a registry entry. Any entry into the registry, there was an attempt to modify that entry. You know, registry is the brain of a computer system. If it is modified, it can hamper the functioning of a computer system. So attempt to modify a registry entry, attempts to gain access to a system, these are all indicators of compromise or uh, execution of a malicious process. For example, from command prompt, somebody opened Notepad and then probably created a batch file that will act as a logic bomb is scheduled in the scheduler to run at a specific time. So malicious process or malicious activity, they are all indicators of compromise on a system. What could be an indicator of compromise on an application? Indicator of compromise on an application is injection attack. A threat actor tries to exploit the application by executing an injection attack, SQL injection attack, or a cross-site scripting attack. That could be another indicator of compromise or indicator of attack on an application, right? Similarly, on a network, what could be an attempt? Attempt to scan the network for open ports. Somebody tried to scan the network or a specific IP address range for open ports. It's an indicator of attack. Somebody is trying to gain access or gain information about my network. Right? Scan the network for open port or lateral movement. There has been an attempt to move laterally from one system to another over the network by a worm or a malicious payload or a malicious software. So these are indicators of attack on a network, right? Or the other indicators of attack on the network is open management port, which is 3389, 22, 25, 53, etc. These are management ports. These are critical. If these management ports are open from internet, anybody can remote in or SSH in or probably compromise your DNS or SMTP systems. So this is the example of indicators of attack or indicators of compromise. or indicators of misconfiguration. Now, what could be the misconfiguration on the system? The misconfiguration on the system is that multiple admin accounts presence. On a system, there are multiple admin accounts. There should only be one or two admin accounts, but there are multiple admin accounts. This is indicator of misconfiguration on a system. What could be an indicator of misconfiguration of on on an application? The misconfiguration is application, outdated application, or absence of critical security patches. This is indicators of misconfiguration that it is misconfigured, right? Then what could be the indicator of misconfiguration on a network? The misconfiguration is this open management port, that the network is exposed on some management port. That's indicator of misconfiguration on the network. Or you can have uh, unused VPN terminals. You've created a VPN tunnel. You've basically added a network to a VPN, but nobody is connecting to it. Nobody has used it. So unused VPN terminals, that's indicator of misconfiguration. So all of these examples that I've given you, they are they are basically misconfigurations, uh, attack surface areas that can be exploited by threat actors, that can be exploited by hackers, that can also result in insider attack. And an endpoint security solution is there to protect your endpoints, prevent these indicators or these attacks. It is there to contain all of them. That's what endpoint security software does. And that's where CrowdStrike comes into the picture. So what CrowdStrike does, CrowdStrike Falcon sensor, it basically monitors your endpoint for all on write and on execute events or action. Remember this, any endpoint security solution, any EDR solution, the job of EDR solution is this. It is to monitor the endpoint for on write and on execute actions or operations. So if there is a malicious file, a malicious payload that comes into your system. Maybe the user on the endpoint was browsing a website, and by mistake, user clicked on some URL, some hyperlink, and that basically downloaded a malicious payload on the system. So this is on write activity. Something is written on the disk. CrowdStrike Falcon sensor will be quick to scan what has just been written onto the disk. On execute, the user, I'm saying on the endpoint, all of a sudden, command dot, from the command prompt, a notepad file is opened and something is written on that notepad file and it is saved as dot batch, dot btt file, which means this is on execute. Something is executed on the system which is malicious in nature. So the Falcon sensor will be quick to monitor this behavior, this on execute behavior. That's what Falcon sensor basically does. They basically monitor for on write and on execute operations on the system. On execute also is equivalent to browsing. When you browse something on the system. So when users are browsing the internet, they are doing execution. While browsing the internet, they are navigating from one website to another. They are clicking on certain links, which is opening certain other websites, or in return, it is also putting some files onto the user local system. All that is monitored. That is known as on write and on execute operations, right? So CrowdStrike basically monitor your system, application, and network for on write and on execute operations. And as part of that monitoring, it will protect it. Give me a minute. All right. So that's what CrowdStrike basically does. Now, how CrowdStrike protects and what CrowdStrike can protect. So CrowdStrike basically uses machine learning capability that it has. And using machine learning capability, it is able to detect, discover, and block or protect from any indicator, whether it's indicator of compromise, whether it's indicator of attack, or whether it is indicator of misconfiguration, right? So CrowdStrike uses ML, machine learning, to detect. It can detect, discover, and block or protect your systems from indicators of attack, or indicators of misconfiguration, or indicators of compromise. And it provides comprehensive security to endpoints. That's what CrowdStrike does. So it uses machine learning. And how it uses machine learning? CrowdStrike has its own cyber threat intel. There are two things that CrowdStrike uses here. The first thing that CrowdStrike does, it uses its own cyber threat intel. It uses its cyber threat intel feeds from CrowdStrike. So cyber threat intel feed from CrowdStrike that it receive, plus indicators. Indicator configuration at customer end. These are the two things through which CrowdStrike protect your endpoints. So CrowdStrike is also receiving cyber threat intel feed from different open source intelligence, from different paid or free third parties who are informing CrowdStrike about any potential vulnerability, any zero-day attack, zero-day vulnerability, any indicator. It continues to receive those feeds, and it will continue to update its sensors with those feeds. That's the first thing. Second thing, CrowdStrike customers who are using CrowdStrike solutions, they can also create custom indicators which they want to be which they want to be blocked, or which they want their endpoints to be protected from those indicators. That's what customers can also do. So what are my indicators? My indicators could be, so what are my indicators? My are that I want to protect my endpoints. They are known malwares, which are quite known. Known malwares, file hashes, IP addresses, domains, URLs, FQDNs, and certificates, etc. These are my
What is FQDN?
FQDN is frequently qualified domain name. Uh, the URL, basically. URL and FQDN is different. URL sometimes means, let's say, www.microsoft.com. That's the URL through which you can open Microsoft website. But what if I say microsoft.com/images? Then it becomes FQDN, frequently qualified domain name, through which a domain is identified, right? So domain, URL, and FQDN, they are almost the same things with very substantial difference. So file hashes, known malwares, malwares you already know, malicious files, malicious code, malicious softwares and applications, file hashes, IP addresses, domain, URL, FQDNs, and certificates. These are indicators, and we can configure CrowdStrike to protect our endpoints from these indicators. That's what CrowdStrike will do. Now let's talk about some known malwares or known things that you would like to block on your endpoints. So for example, most of the financial frauds that have happened in the past, you must have noticed that they were targeted towards users who were non-technical, and they had a threat, they had a technique a tactics involved. The tactics was remote login software. So remote login software, which is, it could be AnyDesk, TeamViewer, Log Me In, etc. So what if there is a remote login software uh, installed by somebody, a threat actor or user by mistakes downloaded, and that software is used by a threat actor to remotely connect to your system, and you would not be aware of it, that somebody is remotely connected to my system in my absence. So remote login software. Now these are the things that a business would want to block, right? Then comes employment portals. For example, Indeed.com, Naukri.com, or Monster.com, remote portals. Now you would say, what is the threat? So sometimes it is not about threat. This is a custom indicator. My business thinks that if my employees browse these websites, it will hamper their productivity. It will result in loss of productivity. So business would want to block few things. It is not always a risk. It is always a method to increase the productivity also, because EDR solutions can also do this capability. So you can block these employment portals, right? Similarly, social networking portals, for example, Facebook.com, Instagram.com, X.com, or etc. These portals. Similarly, you can think of gaming websites, gaming portals. Now you know that on gaming portals, since they are free, a lot of known and malicious software or malware exists there. So malicious threat presence on these portals. Similarly, porn sites, betting sites, or online music, you see a lot of ads. On these sites, you see a lot of adware, and these adwares sometimes have hidden malicious payload. You see a lot of ads. By mistake, you click on one of the image that pop-ups all of a sudden. It contains a malicious payload. The moment you click on it, it will put something on your endpoint. It will download something on the endpoint. CrowdStrike is constantly monitoring for on-write activities. It will be quick to check what has just been written on the disk, and it will scan that file. If it finds that file has a known malicious payload, that file hash is matching with an indicator, which a known malware, it will be quick to quarantine it. It will be quick to put it into the quarantine folder, which means it will not allow execution of it, further execution of it. So all these websites. So these are some of the indicators that you would like to block, or some of the activities that you would like to address on your endpoints. So using CrowdStrike, a business, or I would say customer, can block execution of known software or application or executable or IP address on the endpoint. And also not only IP address, also a domain, URL, or FQDN. That's what a customer can do. That's the value proposition that CrowdStrike brings on the table. And that's exactly what we are going to discuss in indicators. Is everyone with me so far? Did it make sense?
Yeah, Dr. Gavin, I have one question here.
Mhm.
For every time, if I go for the blocking porn site, betting site, and online music site, there is lot of platform.
Yep.
Is there any option in the CrowdStrike in the policy? Can I set if it is related to the any of the betting site or online site? Uh, it can be blocked. Can I set the policy like the Defender?
See, in Microsoft Defender for endpoint, you have integration available with Microsoft Cloud App Security. Under Cloud App Security, you have applications. There you have a list of applications across categories, and you can directly select a category, or from that category, you can select some of the applications and you can mark them as, blacklisted. And then they automatically get transitioned to Defender for endpoint under indicators. That's the integration
Okay.
between MCAS and MDE. But in CrowdStrike, you don't have MCAS. It doesn't have any application security integration. So in CrowdStrike, you need to manually do it. However, CrowdStrike gives you an opportunity to bulk upload multiple known malicious domains, known malicious IP addresses, known malicious URL into its indicators. That's what CrowdStrike provides.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yes. But it is the I think it is the limitation of the CrowdStrike. In the Defender, there is the option. In the CrowdStrike, it is no controls.
So once that's what I'm trying to say. Defender for endpoint, which is an equivalent software with CrowdStrike Falcon, doesn't have that capability. It's a capability which is part of another Defender product, which is Microsoft Cloud App Security. It is not Defender for endpoint capability what you're talking about. In
Okay.
Defender for endpoint, you also have indicators, and you don't have an option to probably identify all indicators related to employment job portals. And it will provide you a list of 1,000 job portals across the world, which includes
Y-
all local, regional, global job portals. It doesn't have that capability. And
Yeah.
same is the case with CrowdStrike. Okay, so that's
Okay.
in. All right. So this was about indicators, guys. Now, if I navigate back to CrowdStrike console under endpoint security, when you navigate to endpoint security at the bottom under configuration, you have this option IOC management. Inside IOC management, it says no indicator. So what are different indicators that CrowdStrike supports? So CrowdStrike supports indicators as file hashes. CrowdStrike supports domain and IP address. So CrowdStrike supports three indicators: file hashes, domain, and IP address. Right? Now CrowdStrike doesn't support the fourth one, which is which is there in Defender. What is that fourth indicator in Defender? If you remember the portal, certificate-based blocking. You can also, because most of the softwares and applications, they are signed by the the OEM, the software provider or software vendor. They are signed by the software vendor or the software provider, whosoever they come from, and they are signed through a certificate, and that certificate is common for that version of application. So CrowdStrike doesn't provide you certificate based blocking. It provides you blocking based on IP address. So if you have known IP addresses that, so while now how this list evolves over a period of time, first of all understand this. From day one, you don't have list of IP addresses. Based on how CrowdStrike will continue to protect your environment, based on how detections will generate over a period of time, when incident responder, when your SOC team responds to those incidents, when they investigate, they will identify certain IP addresses, and they will be confident that these IP addresses are malicious. These IP addresses have been involved in multiple threat, multiple attack on the endpoints. So those IP addresses will be shared by the operations team. They will share the IP addresses and say, please block this IP address on all endpoints because there had been multiple attempts from this IP address to gain access to our endpoints. Brute force attack. This is the originating IP address of brute force attack. And the presence of this IP address have been found on multiple endpoints. Then the admin team will pick up that IP address and block it under indicators. So probably from day one, you will not have a list of 100 IPs or probably 10, 15, 20 IPs, but over a period of time, since this is a continuous process, security is continuous, it never ends. You will continue to add more and more IP addresses to the indicator. And that is where you will block known malicious IP addresses, right? So that's one thing. Then comes domain URLs. Probably on day one, you know that what URLs you want to block. For example, I want to block all remote login softwares like AnyDesk. I'm saying I want to block these softwares, these applications from day one, because my environment doesn't allow any of these, or they have been involved. These remote login softwares have been involved in financial frauds or other types of attack in the past. I want to block all job portals. I want to block all social networking sites because they run a lot of ads and through which an adware or spyware can enter my endpoint, right? So probably some gaming websites or some of these websites you already know from day one. That is what you're going to block over here in domains. Similarly, some applications that you are aware from day one. For example, let's say your employees now media player is default application in Windows system. And using media player, you can watch a video, you can listen to an audio, right? That's what you do using media player. But what some employees do, some employees download VLC media player because VLC media player provides you more capabilities, or they can download a third party media player on the system. And these third party solutions, they have known malicious vulnerabilities. VLC Media Player has a lot of vulnerability. You can check it on Virus Total by typing this application name. You will see a lot of vulnerability with this application. Why? Because this is open source. There is nobody to claim ownership and be accountable for security of this application. And you will find this application on most of the endpoints. So there are some applications which are quite known, and those applications sometimes results in malicious activity on the endpoints. So from day one, as an admin, if you have any information, as an admin, if you know, if you're aware of any IP address, any domain, or any application that you would like to block on your endpoints from day one, go ahead and configure indicators for it. And then, as and when your security practice matures over a period of time, you will continue to receive inputs from your operations team who will from time to time update you on certain IP addresses, domain, and applications or file hashes that must be blocked into the system, into the CrowdStrike, so that the endpoints are protected from them. That's how indicators will work. Is it making sense to all of you?
Yes, Raghuveer. I have one question. Like, if I want to block .exe file, for example, if I block notepad.exe for every endpoints, where I can block?
If you want to block notepad.exe,
Yes.
we can block it. That for that we need to create another block list. There is a process. So we'll come to that part. Let's first understand this, because from this moment onward, it is all about blocking things on the endpoint, ensuring that endpoints are not able to access something. So when it comes to Notepad, we know that Notepad is a default application on all the system, and there's a fixed path that Notepad had. So we'll just need to identify that path and block that path. So I'll talk about that part also. But right now, let's focus on indicators, what indicators are available. So let me show you indicators part. Now, on the endpoint, you need to click on add indicators. It will ask you what you want to add. So it says add hashes, add domains, add IP addresses. Let's say add domains. If I click on add domain, that's the first thing that you see. If you already have a list of known malicious domains from your previous experience, or from another software that you were using, then you migrated to CrowdStrike, or you probably have a threat intel feed from a third party that also provides you list of malicious domains, and you want to block all the domains on your endpoints, you can directly upload them here, right? You can upload the file. It also shows you formatting guidelines for that file, that how that CSV file should look like, how many columns should be there, and how domain should be separated. So you can look for the formatting guideline. But since we don't have a file, I'll show you how to manually add it. So we'll click on manually add domain. Here we will need to type the domain. So it says settings apply to all domains added. So we can manually add domain here, or we can just come here and start providing the information. Right, so I can add a domain. Let's say I can say www.facebook.com, right? So that's manual domain that I can add. Then I can put a description, that what description, I'm saying description of this. So I can say uh, social networking websites or social networking portal. So social networking portal. Now, after I provide, now I can put more separated by comma, which is www.instagram.com www. uh, let's say x.com, whatever I want to block, I will put the domains there. Then I will need to select the platform, for which platform I'm blocking it. Now I need to select platforms separately. I can select multiple platforms in the same domain, or I can keep them separate. For example, you know that you don't typically browse internet from Linux, but you can also put platform like this. So I've selected all platform, right? Now, if I want to block this on all the hosts, I can select this checkbox all host. The moment I say all host, it will be blocked on all the hosts across my CrowdStrike Falcon deployment. However, since I have multiple participants and I want you to do it, restrict it to your systems only. So instead of clicking on all host, you will select a host group, your respective host group. So I'll select my host group, Cloud Expert Endpoint, that is my host group. You will select your respective host group. You, even if you do all host, this setting will not apply because your access is restricted to your host only. So I select my host group. Then it says action. What action should be taken in this case when this domain, I'm saying when users are trying to access this domain. So it says detect only, which is show as a detection and take no other action. Second, no action. Save indicators in IOC management and take no action. So this only supports detect and no action. So I will say show as a detection, which means whenever my user tries to access these domains, it will basically generate a detection for it, right? So it will generate a detection. Then you will need to select the severity. What will happen? What will happen in this case? So I will need to select the severity of it. When the detection is generated, what severity it will be generated with. So I'll say this is critical, high, low information, whatever you want to do, you can do it. Then the expiration date. What will be the expiration date for this indicator? Do you want it to expire at some point in time? So you need to put the expiration date of this indicator. If you don't put any expiration date, the indicator will be permanent. This behavior will be permanent. And if you put an expiration date, it will be applicable for that till date only. So I'll just skip this part. Then I can put some tag, I'm just some information that will help others to identify what this domain means. And in the end, I can put an audit log also, which is important for administrators or other people to know. So I can say blocking all social networking sites as mandated by business. And then you can add this domain. So it says one or more indicators having a warning or invalid show error report. The value field must contain a valid domain name. Okay, so it doesn't allow you to put multiple domains. You just need to put one, facebook.com. And you can hit add domain. Now this is added. So it is added. I can just refresh.
So it will generate only logs whenever someone this endpoint user try to access Facebook. It will not block the Facebook, right?
It will not block the Facebook because see, that's where you need to understand the CrowdStrike. But there are other ways. If you want to block, then I will show you another method. Through firewall policy, I can block it. But indicators basically means presence of activities, and you want to know about the presence. You want your monitoring team to get notified. So right now from indicators, I can only generate detections when one of these known indicators or known domains are being accessed on my endpoints. If it is about blocking them, then there's a separate option for it.
And also
Does
that CrowdStrike does not provide something malicious IP lists just like other vendor OEM, firewall OEM provide a list of the malicious IPs that can automatically added by the OEM. That
no.
type of features CrowdStrike does not support.
CrowdStrike doesn't provide that. However, what CrowdStrike does, CrowdStrike doesn't provide a list of malicious IP addresses, but CrowdStrike has its own cyber threat intel. If there is any malicious IP address, CrowdStrike blocks it by itself. So why would CrowdStrike, give this pain to the customer that you manage it yourself? CrowdStrike is providing you machine learning protection. So if there is any known malicious IP address that you are aware of, try to try to send try to access that IP address from your endpoint, or try to access your IP address from that. Try to access your endpoint from that IP address. You will notice that CrowdStrike will automatically block it. For example, uh, if you go to this domain, icar.org, from your endpoint, not from this system, from your endpoint, whichever has CrowdStrike Falcon sensor on it, if you go to this domain, and from here, if you click on download anti-malware test files, the moment you will click any of these files, CrowdStrike will be quick to stop that behavior, because CrowdStrike knows that it's a known malicious domain, which is primarily used for security proof of concept or security trainings. So you can see here, in fact, not only CrowdStrike, my laptop, this system, let me see. Yep, this laptop, the one that I'm using for this training, this also has CrowdStrike on it. So see, the moment I click on download, it will be blocked. I hit download and see what will happen. I provide the location, hit save, and what will happen? See, it is trying to download. It has downloaded, and you can see CrowdStrike says icar underscore dot zip virus detected. And wheresoever I have downloaded it, I will not find it there. It is gone already from there. So where it was downloaded, see, it is not even showing me the folder. Once again, I'll show you other file. See, I'm trying to download it, and now where I'm downloading it, let's say on the desktop. Over here, I'm trying to download it on the desktop. The moment I'll say save, this file will get downloaded. CrowdStrike Falcon sensor is monitoring my laptop for on-write operations. It will identify that something is written on the disk. It will quickly scan that file. It will know that it's a malicious file. It's a known malware. It will be quick to quarantine it. So I'll hit save and see what will happen. The moment I hit save, it says virus detected, and this file is also gone. If I go to the desktop, you will not find this file. It has already been moved. See, the file is not here. The file has already been moved to the quarantine folder. So that's what CrowdStrike is doing. CrowdStrike is providing protection to your endpoints by design, and by virtue of that protection, it automatically takes care of it. So other security solution probably put the onus on the customer to manage it by themselves, but CrowdStrike does it all by itself. It has very less expectation from the customer. It only requires customer to identify a custom domain that customer thinks may be malicious for their business, and put that into indicators. And any malicious domain that is common across the globe for all business units and business verticals, or it does industry verticals, CrowdStrike is already protecting your endpoints from them. Hope that made sense to everyone.
Yes, sir. So last question, sir. We generally we receive a lot of feeds from third parties advisory that this is the malicious IP. That required to block on CrowdStrike console, or it will also CrowdStrike already have that on threat intel. So that IP also will there in CrowdStrike
No,
in
you will
their
not see
threat
it
intel.
in CrowdStrike. That's what I'm trying to say. That CrowdStrike requires little to be done from the customer. CrowdStrike takes care of endpoint security all by itself through its machine learning engine, wherein it receives constant, regular cyber threat intel feed from different open source intelligence as well as paid feeds. And it automatically protects all the endpoints from it. It doesn't require a customer to do it. And obviously, since CrowdStrike is doing it from the backend, you cannot see it on your portal. There is no way where you can see what CrowdStrike is, what is the current list of IP addresses that CrowdStrike thinks is malicious. For example, as we speak, multiple countries in the world are fighting with each other, and they are not fighting on ground. They are fighting from remote. So they are basically, they're basically kind of sending missiles, or they are attacking each other, from long distance range missiles. That's what they are doing. At the same time, there's a cyber warfare which is going on, wherein an enemy country is trying to bring down the systems or network of critical infrastructure of the enemy country. So a lot of cyber warfare is also happening. So at this moment, CrowdStrike is CrowdStrike is prompt to identify any known malicious attempt, and it will prevent all endpoints from it for all the customers. So this is done by CrowdStrike. Take it this way. In other security solutions, we manually do it as a security solution admin. In case of CrowdStrike, CrowdStrike is doing it all by itself. Hope that makes
Uh,
sense to
yes, sir. I
everyone.
have a question. The applications you block right now, it doesn't pop up the CrowdStrike sensor notification. Does it
It is
block by? Does it block by the sense? The application you blocked just right now, ECIR applications.
no, I
Uh,
did not block it. It is by default blocked by CrowdStrike because CrowdStrike knows that it's a known malicious domain.
but it didn't pop the notification of CrowdStrike.
Where
Uh, just just to download this. Like when you something malicious download, the notification pop up by the CrowdStrike, right?
it was there. I'm saying when I clicked on download, you can see when I clicked on save, you don't see it here
Mhm.
on my system. It says see the pop-up now. It says virus detected. This is
No, the
coming from
notification I'm talking about. Notification. Falcon notification on the
notification
system.
on. So that's what you see. Don't you see this square box, rectangular box on my screen that says virus detected? This is the
Uh,
notification.
this is by a McAfee or CrowdStrike.
No, no, McAfee is another thing. McAfee is web advisor. McAfee is only just telling me. So okay, look at the other one. For example, this one. Now see, McAfee will not come. Only CrowdStrike will do. See, now this is CrowdStrike. These are all CrowdStrike that you see where it says virus detected, virus detected, virus detected. These are all CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is doing it. And
Uh,
CrowdStrike is not only doing it. I'll show you in the console also for my respective endpoint. So if I navigate to the endpoint detections, here you can see it's already coming. So on chrome.exe, if I click on this severity, read, you will see it here. The cloud
okay, sir.
expert.
Okay, clear the doubt. Keep going.
You can go on the top. I think somewhere I saw it in the top.
Right, you can see over here, you can see ICAR test file written Windows
Yes,
are
yes.
indicators of attack, right? So
Okay.
CrowdStrike already knows that ICAR is a known malicious website and it has captured it real quick. And
Okay,
it
so
was
the crowd,
you can see, and by the user myself, it says my name, my endpoint name, and the application on which this was executed. It has all the information.
so it will not pop up the notification like when we insert the USB drive on the our system and we have blocked it. It will show us a pop-up of notification by this USB is blocked by your organization. Like for malwares, it doesn't show that notification.
No, no, it shows notification the way I've shown you, that the moment a user is trying to do something, it says virus detected, and it will automatically quarantine that file. That's all. It differs from one software to another, right? Some software say it loudly, some softwares doesn't say it, some keeps it short and simple. That's how CrowdStrike does. So as soon as you perform an activity on the system, you will have notification, which is what I showed you from the browser, because I was doing it on the browser. And at the same time, in the detections, I can see this detection also.
If the severity also looks informational, I think it will show for critical ones.
No, no, it will show for everything. This is informational because this is a known, this icar.org is not a malware. It's a site that contains anti-malware test file. That's the reason it says informational. But if I go to any other website that contains the malware, then the severity may change. But you can change the severity also. While you investigate, let's say you feel the CrowdStrike thinks that this is informational. But while you edit, you can click on edit status, and then you can change the severity also. So you can do that. I'm saying I will talk about when we will do this response part. Then I'll talk about how can we perform an investigation, what we can do. I'm saying how can we make use of all of these tabs which are there. That we'll talk about later on. Okay, so that's what CrowdStrike does, and that's again the indicators part that I wanted to talk about. Now we already have gone through over and above almost half an hour. So we'll close the session here. And in the next session, we'll continue with indicators. We will configure a couple of indicators. We will configure indicators based on domain, based on file hashes, based on IP addresses. I'll give you some applications, known malicious applications for whom you can create indicators. And after the indicators are created, then I will ask you to switch as a threat actor and then try to exploit your systems by browsing those indicators, by executing those operations. And you will notice how quick CrowdStrike is to protect your endpoints by restricting your behavior, by not allowing you to perform that activity. That's what we are going to do in the remainder of the session, all the sessions, because now we are left with policies and control. So we'll create policies, we'll validate the implication of those policies ourselves. So that's what we are going to do in the remainder of the session. Any question from any participant before we close the session today? Okay, so the assignment for you guys, now you have entire week with yourself. Go ahead and explore these indicators. Identify certain IP addresses, applications, domain, add them in the CrowdStrike yourself, and see on your respective endpoints. When you make sure that you scope them to your host group and then log into your endpoints, try to violate the security and see whether CrowdStrike is being effective in order to stop that behavior, or you are probably able to create an exception and CrowdStrike was not able to detect that behavior. And we'll discuss it in the next session. That is all for today. Any question from any participant?
Yeah, Raghu. Joydeep this side. Yeah, in the start of the session, you changed that Linux for the Linux. You added that maintenance token option from the, I think, from somewhere, right? Where sensor update policy. So, if so, the now the maintenance token is showing in the UI part, but all my system, those systems which is Linux VM are right now in the closed state. So last thing it is showing 3-4 days. So if I like install switch on the system and it will take some time to like sync with that one, right? In the CloudStrike UI, it is showing the maintenance token, but there when I installed it, it was during that time it was not there. So it will take some time to sync, and then we can use the maintenance token part.
Absolutely, because understand in the production environment, your endpoints are not shut down. This is a training environment, and to save cost of your AWS cloud so that you don't unnecessarily pay at the end of the month, you're shutting down your endpoints. But in production, nobody shuts down the endpoint. Okay.
And if I switch on the bulk maintenance token, so the individual token that is there, it will stop working or both will work?
So individual will also work, bulk will work, bulk will override the individual. So bulk is for 20 systems, 100 systems, which includes
Okay.
one system that has individual token also. So
Uh,
bulk overrides everything.
okay, so suppose if for one system I am trying to uninstall, so I can uninstall using the bulk token as well and the maintenance token as well.
See, understand, it's like where you need a needle, why would you need a sword? That's simple. If you have an individual maintenance token for the endpoint,
Hmm.
why would you need a bulk maintenance token for that endpoint? Bulk is for all the endpoints. But to answer your
Mhm.
question, for individual endpoints, bulk maintenance token will also work.
Okay, because why I was asking, because last time we were not getting for the Linux the maintenance token option, right? So during
But
that time, uh,
during that time, if you had a bulk token, that would have worked.
uh, exactly, that's why. Okay.
Bulk will work everywhere. The condition is your endpoint must be online so that
Hmm.
the bulk information is updated for that endpoint. The sensor on the endpoint must know that there has been a bulk maintenance token activated by admin.
Okay.
Yeah. Shiva, if
Okay.
block the host group, how to enable the access to particular host endpoint? Shiva, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat that? Is Shiva there in the session?
Sir, I have a question regarding host group.
Please go ahead.
So, like, do we have a pin type host group in this?
What is pin type host group?
Like we have in Sentinel one pin type host group.
So what is the
Where
pin type host group?
so pin type host group is like basically like we create a manual host group and a dynamic host group. And in dynamic host group, we set operating system equals to Windows, and in our manual group also we have Windows system also. So what happens? Those Windows group in manual group also come inside the dynamic group also, and we don't want that those system will move to that dynamic group. So we will create those pin type host group.
You mean to say explicit grouping of endpoints in a specific
Yeah,
host group, right? No, we
yeah.
don't have in CrowdStrike.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other?
Raghu, yes, one more thing, like in the starting of the session, you told that if the auto delete part, suppose if I have enabled auto delete and not enable auto hide, so during that time, after 7 days, if I send the auto delete is 7 days, then after 7 days, it will not go to hide, it will directly delete, right? If in case I don't enable the auto hide.
No, no, but by default it is enabled. By default,
But
if
I
you
can disable it, na, if I use a custom policy, so
Hmm.
it will, right?
However, I'll tell you something. You should always
Hmm.
follow the best practice. I'm saying
Okay.
you're not, so it's like recycle bin and then shift delete. You
Hmm.
should first move your system to recycle bin and then let recycle bin automatically remove it after 30 days. That is the best practice. Doing shift delete is not the best practice, which means that a system is offline for a couple of days and then all of a sudden it is removed. How would
Hmm.
your users know about this change? Your users probably will get confused because they will not see that system all of a sudden. But if your users
Hmm.
see a system in hidden, then they would know that this system is slated for deletion probably next couple of days. That's the difference.
Okay. And one thing you told that suppose if something is auto deleted and after the timeline and then the system comes online, it will not sync with the CloudStrike, right? But for me, actually, it syncs. Means I host retention policy, I kept it for 2 days.
Uh,
Like when I turned on, like in the morning when I turned on the CrowdStrike portal, that VM was not showing. But when I turned on, it's a VMware workstation. So when I turned on the workstation, now it is again showing in my portal. But the thing is that here the first seen date is showing today's date. So, but in the CrowdStrike also it is saying the same in the documentation that it will automatically restore. If a deleted host come online, it is automatically restored.
It will automatically restore.
So because I was trying to uninstall it, the sensor, and it was because for Windows by default uninstallation token is required, right? So I turned on the VM. So when I turned on the CrowdStrike portal in the morning, so it was not showing because I had just to test. I had kept the auto delete to 2 days, auto hide 2 days, and auto delete to 2 days. So obviously for last I installed it on 15th. So the last scene was 15th. So after that I have not turned that VM on. So today on the turn on the portal, it was not showing in the portal. But then I turn on that VM again. It is showing in the portal. But the thing is, the first scene date is showing today.
Okay. So which means that it has re-registered itself. It is not the same VM. It is not the same old VM. For CrowdStrike, it's a different entry completely because its first seen is today's date, right? So it is a
First
different
thing is
entry. It is not the
so,
same VM. The same VM will not come. So
but the thing is that we don't have to re-register it. In the session, you told that we have to re-register the VM. So that is not required.
because I was telling you from production perspective. This is a lab environment. You still have that system. But in production system, what scenario the system will disappear? When the employee has left the organization, when the employee has left the organization, submitted his or her endpoint to the IT team has reimagined it and given it to some other employee. Take it this way. Now, at that point in time, that CrowdStrike Falcon sensor will not be there because the system has been reimaged. So I was telling you from production endpoint. What you're explaining is from training perspective that your endpoint continues to exist. But even in that case, your endpoint is registered as a new endpoint now because it shows today's date. And if you look at the detections, if your existing endpoint had any previous detection, you will notice that no detections are visible for the previous endpoint. Everything is deleted from the console for that endpoint.
Okay. In the Windows, it is showing to the 15. The CrowdStrike sensor is installed on 15, but here since it already got deleted, so the previous entry will be deleted. Now it will act as a like press instance.
Absolutely.
Right.
And no previous detections will be available. No previous data will be available.
Okay. So and suppose like one VM I install in the first VM is that EC2 instance. So during that time I had not installed the host retention policy, that 7 days whatever you showed last day. So that VM I have uninstalled the CrowdStrike, but that is showing in the portal. So the thing is that then by default, if it will be in the portal for 45 days, right? So if I want to delete it, then I have to reinstall CrowdStrike, and then because in the host retention policy, that policy is not applied to this VM because that was already sensor is deleted. So if I want to remove it from the portal, I have to reinstall it and sync it with the portal, or like how it will work, because otherwise it will. Yes.
You need to install it and sync it with the portal.
Otherwise, it will take one license, right? Because if 45 days it will wait, then I have to reinstall it and then sync it with the portal and then remove it. Else it will take one license, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Shiva, block a domain URL for a host group, but allow access for a specific host endpoint. How do we do it? See, there is no exception here. If you want to allow it for a specific host, you need to remove that host from that host group. Shiva, did you get answer to your question? So we don't have excluded. I'm saying in Sentinel-1 or in other softwares, there's an option when you create a block list. There is an option to exclude groups, or there's an option to exclude a specific host from that group. That capability is not there in CrowdStrike. So if you are scoping a specific indicator to a host group, then it applies to all the hosts in that group. There is no method on the UI to create an exception for one of the hosts in that group. That's how CrowdStrike works. And that's what you need to learn. if you have worked with other EDR solutions, then you are comparing and correlating CrowdStrike with them. And then at the end of the training session, you will create a decision. You will arrive at a decision whether CrowdStrike is better or others were better. And you will find and it will be a mixed decision, because CrowdStrike is quite good in some certain capacities, and in certain things CrowdStrike probably lacks. Okay. All right, guys. So now we'll end the session for today, and I'll see you in the next weekend. Please make sure that you continue to practice and do not onboard more than 2 hosts. If you have multiple hosts, if you've already practiced onboarding part, please go ahead and gracefully remove those hosts. I'm saying use maintenance token and uninstall those hosts so that they are removed from CrowdStrike and they are unnecessarily occupying licenses, because for each participant, I've been allowed only 2 endpoint licenses, one for Linux, one for Windows. That's the 2 main endpoints which you will find most of the enterprises with. So please make sure that you follow the best practices or follow the instructions.
Sir, regarding the host retention policy, in default, we have 45 days for so that the what is this? Like we have 45 days to remove the host from the,
No,
automatically will remove from the hidden, right?
no, you don't have 45 days. As based, as per the policy, when the host has been inactive, it will automatically get removed from the console after 45 days.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you.